Okay, cool. So just to give you guys a little bit of an introduction, like I said, Nitin Walia has been my legal advisor for almost 5, 6 years now. We're not clear as to when it started because it was just like it just happened. Nitin does a lot of work with representing athletes, budding athletes, sports people, artists like me, and I think regular law work also, right? Like just yeah. So anytime I'm in any sort of a legal dilemma, this is the man that I call. So yeah, Nitin, you can take it away. I think we'll have people like sort of filtering in and out because it's an open call, and we're also recording, so people can watch it in their own time as well. So please introduce yourself.
All right, good. Let me just set up the screen share one.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll just start the slideshow.
Start it on one. Otherwise, it'll start on the last slide.
Okay, cool. So this is an interactive session. So I mean, literally asking questions, really fun. So everybody just relax for the next 1 hour and a half. Right? We'll have some good fun together. Okay, so let's start. You look at everybody can see, sir.
Yeah.
I tell you the first slide, sir. Insert X. Okay. Can you everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay, good. So the topic of today is art and the law. So we given it a tagline that is what protects, regulates, and facilitates. So I'm Nitin Walia. I'm a barrister, qualified barrister overseas, and I have my own law firm now in India. So I practice. Jay had given me quite a brief introduction. So I'm mostly a corporate lawyer. So I have a lot of individuals, corporates, companies doing transactions, good advice from pre-incorporation all the way beyond exit. Now, law is something which is very dynamic. So we give a lot of advice around many dynamic things. So the very hot topic now is artificial intelligence, quantitative trading, algorithmic, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, all that. So this is something which I'm quite familiar with and quite fascinated with it. So I've done a couple of talks in this area also. So a lot of people have asked me advice in this area. So I really enjoy talking about things which are quite cutting edge, quite tech enabled, quite out of the box. So I like to do a lot of reading around these topics also. So on that context, Jay approached me. So okay, let's share what we have done together and also put this three images together. So like I said, this is an interactive session, right? So feel relaxed. You can ask anything. It can be the most advanced thing. It can be the simplest thing. Don't worry about it. Don't need to bounce these things off each other. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so I mean, if you just mentally just ask yourself what point of a lawyer? People think of lawyers, especially in India. I mean, the first thing is like you're in trouble or something, right? Or it's like a doctor, or I need somebody, hey, some prescription. But no, that is not the case. And I think the Jew is quite advanced in this. A lot of artists, I advise a lot of artists, inquiries also. Law is very important because it impacts many things. For example, the first thing I think everybody looks at is, It's to get what you deserve, especially in payments, right? Now, the first point I given is contract review, where a lawyer will come in and help you draft the contract so you then make. Now, I don't just start by just talking. As this question, will anything you got it? I think yeah.
Yes, it is being recorded. Abhishek.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, let's start with a very simple thing. What is a contract, right? I like to keep things very simple. If you're not able to understand it, that means I'm not able to explain it, right? So the simplest way to describe a contract is it's the three parts. One is an offer. One is consideration, which is an exchange of value. The final thing is acceptance. These three things. If you don't have one of these things, it's not a contract. So if this is not an offer, something is being done. If there's no consideration, there's no exchange of value, or I need it. You can label it as money, something relating or equivalent to money, right? Then it's not a contract. And finally, both the parties have to agree. It's set. Simple, that's a contract, right? Keep that in mind. Yeah, we'll talk more about this along the presentation. Now, what else would you need a lawyer for? I mean, you can be something you can be prepared for the unexpected, right? For example, I mean, you're very cutting edge artist. You want to do something very edgy, and something which is try my Russell opinions, right? Nowadays you have to be over this risk. A lawyer will come in and say, okay, hold on a minute, have you thought about this? Have you thought about doing it this way? Have you thought about disclaimers? Have you thought about having this in your identity clauses in your contract? Have you thought about preparing this with the audience? I mean, all these things. The other thing is essentially lawyer with artists, essentially the main topic is intellectual property, right? So intellectual property is basically protecting your trademark, your copyright of your work or somebody else's work, or utilizing it, or things like that. Preventing others from using it. Now, the other thing lawyers help is suing people, right? So, and also avoiding getting sued, right? Now, I mean, you can obviously go into that, but it is a lonely thing. It's a good role. Good lawyers play a very good role in that. But I like to label a lawyer as your trusted advice. You should be able to pick up the call me and say, listen, I'm thinking about this. And it's a very, it's a very secretive, very secure relationship. Nobody will know what the lawyer and the client can. Nobody is allowed to know you also. Even the police is not allowed to. What the lawyer and the clients keep. So it's a very trusted relationship, and you will get a good lawyer. So I always tell everyone, you need two people in your life. One is a very good lawyer, and one is a very good accountant. Everyone else, no. So a good lawyer will actually help you in many things. From the, really surprise on the bandit and this wide sphere of trees. A lawyer can advise. Okay, so this is just context. So let's go into the action. Okay, so there's a very famous, I don't know if many people have heard about this story, and everybody must be knowing about Salvador Dali, right? Now, there was a very famous relationship between Air India and Salvador Dali. Has anyone heard of this before? I see some of you are nodding there. Yeah. So basically, this was a very renowned artist, and he was engaged by Air India for producing these ashtrays. So you can see the images. So these ashtrays are very special. When you turn them one way, they look like an elephant. When you turn them another way, they look like a snake. When you turn them another way, they look like a swans. the very, very ingenious ashtray that was made. Now, Salvador Dali and Enrique Inca. Now, Salvador Dali is a very famous artist, very expensive, right? Now, Air India, you know, is an area. There at that time was one of the most luxurious airlines that came together to work together. So Salvador Dali, Air India, so there was a gentleman in Air India who was approached Salvador Dali and said, listen, Mr. Dali, we want you to engage in doing this something for us. And Salvador Dali is like, okay, I'll work with you, but I want something in return, right? So he asked for an elephant. Like I'll do 500 ashtrays for you, but I want an elephant in return, right? Now, this is very special. Like, how do we legally define this as a legal relationship or as a contract? Now, again, when I gave you those three parts, what is a contract? One is an offer. So, what was offered? Offered was Salvador Dali was made 500 ashtrays for area. What was the consideration? The consideration was in exchange of an elephant, right? Elephant was worth something to Salvador Dali. Then acceptance was both the parties said, okay, let's do this deal together, right? So they actually agreed this deal where Salvador Dali made 500 ashtrays for Air India and a baby elephant was sent to Spain from India to Salvador Dali. Now the question is, why would Air India and Salvador Dali work together, right? Now, Air India at that time was known as one of the most luxurious airlines. And Salvador Dali also realized, hey, it makes marketing sense, it's creative, it will help, the use of what I'm making in that area. Because at the time, people were allowed to smoke in first class and business class. So it made sense for both the parties, to come together. So what was the legality of the relationship, right? Now, this is where all these questions come in, and we will talk about them later. Was it an artist? Was it basically a person buying the art from him? Who owned the art? Who owned the copyright of the art? Who owned the use of the art? Can you say in the future, hey, Salvador Dali worked with us? Can Salvador Dali say, yeah, I work with Air India? Right? All these questions, are very important. Now the question is, why would Salvador Dali also take an elephant? He could have taken a huge amount of money. And he said, I want $1 million for me, he would be justified to say that. But he took an elephant, right? So, this is where artists, especially those which are doing very well, right? They also create a marketing aura or, an image around them also, right? So he said, because, I wanted to keep the elephants in my olive grove and watch the patterns of shadows on the moonlight, to the river in that. So he is also creating something special out of this legal relationship. So this is where we're talking. Law is something, it is not just plain vanilla, A to B. There's also many dynamics around it which can, be used very well. So this is where good lawyers come in and work together with the artists. Good lawyers come and work together with the clients and say, okay, listen, this relationship can be done in a very dynamic way. So this is one example which is very dynamic and was very rewarding for both the parties. So today, if you try and get one of these ashtrays, they're worth $5 million to $10 million, I believe. And I might be on the higher side. But it's now a collector's item. But it's one of those things which was developed between Air India and Salvador. Now, Salvador Dali is very renowned, and we'll talk more about it later. Let me go along the presentation. So, okay, let's give you another example. Okay, how many are aware of this Obama poster? Yeah, I think quite a few people, right? So, do people know how it was made? Okay, so I just give a background. Obama was giving a press conference one day. I don't remember the date. So Associated Press had sent a photographer. So he had taken two photos, right? One, he had taken a photo where Obama was sitting next to somebody. So it was two people, Obama and the person. And then that photographer also took one photo of him like on his own, and that is the photo on the left, right? Now, artist took this photograph and then added, you know, made its, creativity around it, digitally, changed the colors, added its own creativity, put the word hope, put these symbols around it. I mean, made it like a very renowned poster. Now, this poster started to generate income to this artist, right? I mean, quite a lot of income. I mean, it generated maybe $500,000, right? Because the image was being sold, it was put on websites, or put on posters, stickers, shirts, buttons, and it was even used on the presidential election. And it really, was very different at the time, and people remember this poster, this quite vividly. So then Associated Press said, hold on a minute, right? You used our photo, right? We are the ones who created this, we are the ones who, from which you created it. We should actually have ownership over this, right? So then they sued the artist and said, listen, hey, this isn't so easy to manage. Now, what happened was the parties, they settled, right? And they both in the settlement agreed that they will work together, and, go ahead in a win-win manner. But the reason I bring this to attention is that you have to be careful also, right? Law is something which is, very powerful when you use it right, but can also disturb you if you don't know how you're using it, right? So this is one example where the person, probably in good faith was using the photograph, but he didn't realize that such a they're fluent, and they ended up having to settle, right? So okay, so this is another example. Okay, so now, what are the questions that law can answer? So we're going to go be a little interactive here. So I mean, feel free to turn off your mic, and there might be some, a lag or whatever. Don't worry, we got some time. So I'm just going to ask questions. Whatever you feel, just answer them, right? They have a legal basis why I'm asking. So just think why the question is this, okay? So the first two questions is, what is art? Okay? Can somebody answer what is art?
Yeah. What? Okay. I think I'll take it up. Art is, in a more narrow sense of the word, art is, I think, a generation or a reflection of personal or societal expression. It could be any form, and it could be of some value or no value, but anything that requires some sort of creative expression would be defined as art.
Okay, good. Anyone else? I mean, if somebody can just talk what type of art they do, right?
I guess I'll agree with Jayesh. Like, for me, it's personal expression. So, mostly kind of a release for my thoughts and expression, like, however that might be, like, whatever I'm going through, however I experience the world. kind of putting it out there visually, and just seeing it as an experiment as to, do people relate to it, does it move them, does it change anything in the world, does it even matter? Like, that's what art is for me. um, and again, may or may not have any value for anybody else, but that is how I see it.
Arupu?
I think art for me would be kind of like this holistic perception of observations, conceptualizing, relationships, and etc. formed together, like how Jayesh and Kriti already said. Like, it's like vision and expression come into the form in different ways, be it thing, be it emotion, be it anything, which can have a value or not to anyone for that matter.
One more person? Anyone? I mean, I can, like, what I can very confidently say is that you got three different answers, right? So just imagining easily how to define art, right? Now, who is it for, right? This is another question, right? What is art for? Neda, would the same people like to answer? I mean, Jay, you can go first.
What is art for? I mean, I honestly don't know that. I've been looking at this presentation for a while, and I also don't know what is art for. Like, I don't have an answer for this one.
Yeah.
I think it's like the again, I think it's like the study, observation, and new things which we learn about the world in a metaphorical way, also as a very observational way of expressing what we want to. Like the school of thought and the thought which comes, which is the important part, or like the title, whatever it is, that that for us is kind of art, and it's for the people to rejoice with the artist who has made the art, or it's only for the artist. That's why I think we explained it there, that maybe it can have a value or not, depending upon who is looking at it or who has made it, kind of, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, maybe right or wrong, I personally believe that art has no utility. Like, it's not for anything other than whatever you want it to be. Like, it keeps changing. If there is a utility, then maybe it's a commodity, that like it's something else. It's not really art. So, I mean, that's opening up a huge debate anyway. But that's what I believe. Like, you can't really put a utility to art.
Yeah. So you can just see, when you're um, doing a deal with somebody, right? These are questions which have a quite importance, because you might be defining it, using it for another thing. The person who you're selling it to or you're buying it from might be on a different tangent, right? So this is something which goes to the heart of the who owns the art, who what is the art being done for, what is actually being done, right? So these questions are very critical, right? So I mean, these go to the other thing which is legally important. Is this art, right? And is this good art, right? Now, when you're going and saying, hey, what is art and what is it for? And then hold on a minute, when you produce something or you make something and the person is like, hold on, this is not art, right? Then you get into a situation. Now, again, it goes into the quality. Is this good art, right? For you, it might be amazing. For you ask probably 10 people, 8 might say it's amazing. But the person buying it will say, hold on a minute, it's not. Now, what happens in that situation, right? So quality, is also something you have to look at, right? Again, who made this, right? And who owns this, right? They're very different questions. I mean, you can make it, but you might not own it. Somebody else might own it, right? Now, there are many examples. For example, that um, uh, Obama poster, who made it, but who owns it is different compared to the ashtrays. Who owns it today is probably the person holding the ashtray, not the. But who made it is it Salvador Dali or is it Air India? Right? All these questions are very important, which can really make a huge difference legally. Okay, so who gets to do what with this, right? For example, you get the Obama poster, right? What can we do with it actually, right? That means how to sell it, how to utilize it on t-shirts, on mugs. Who decides that? And who gets to do that, right? You might not want to do it because you don't have the skill to do it. So you might go to a t-shirt manufacturer. Say, listen, can you help me do this? Right? So all these things are very important to think about, right? Then how does the law make art what it is? Now again, we go into the intellectual property. I think I had touched this earlier a little bit, where the trademark, copyright, are very important. You also have the contracts, where there's a contract between the person making the art, who is made for. You also have other rights, where I mean, a lot of you have very explained what, in a very, how it expresses, how it it gives meaning to it, right? So there's that is there, right? So then there's also a lot of commercial elements to it, right? And now what is happening is, especially with the technologies and the international manner in which things are done, there's a lot of international um, context to around it. I mean, we're sitting here in India, we might be in a village in the northeast, very far away, but somebody all the way in San Francisco, Los Angeles is purchasing our work, right? How is that legally being taken care of, right? So this is where law comes in, and actually says, okay, hey, we can make your art what it is, right? So what must the artist know about the law? So again, it's very important to appreciate law can help, support, and it can actually grow the artist. And the other way around, I'm not just talking about the artist, it's also the purchaser of the art or the reseller or the user, right? So law, it can make a big difference. Now again, I'll just sum up these questions, what they basically touch, right? So again, status as an art, right? What is the actual specification? What is the actual description of what you is being made, sold, produced, etc. Again, quality, right? A person might, we're talking very simple thing like, a logo design, right? Somebody might want it on a very particular type of material, right? Certain quality. I mean, all these things, I mean, I talk in a very simplistic manner, right? There might be some standard of care associated with it. Then you go to the other extent where the person is not happy with your work, right? This is rubbish, right? Again, it's a balance, right? Again, ownership. Who owns the art? You might be making it, but you might not own it. I mean, don't be surprised, right? Now, you might even make it, you might even sell it, but the buyer will not own it. That's also possible, right? So there's also things called reprints, where it's just a copy, right? You
Is it an original? Is it a copy? Right? Who owns it? I mean, all these things come into. Now again, authorship. You will be surprised. There are people, they go ghost artists, ghosts, and a phantom artists, right? Where you actually saying, okay, this is made by Nitin, but actually Jay has done it. But everywhere is written Nitin has done it, right? So that's also possible. Now again, authenticity, right? Where you're actually saying it is original work, right? Now this is very critical and of high value is having an authenticity process in place where tomorrow nobody can question that it is actually original work, right? Because this relates to the intellectual property and many other spheres, right? Now again, valuation and appraisal, right? Now if you're selling work for, say, you make a very good canvas painting or digital art, and then you say, hey, listen, is worth, $500,000, right? The person says, no, it's worth $300,000. So this is where valuation appraisals can come into play, where you are actually handling the most important part of the legal relations, which is the consideration, right? Now, Salvador Dali said, my ashtrays are worth baby elephant, right? Now, how do you value a baby elephant? Now, for him, he developed this whole aura around it. Now, when you actually look at it, I mean, I would label it as worth millions of dollars. But if you look at his bank account, it is not there. But that transaction is worth a lot, right? Now, again, we go into the rights. Now, there are so many rights. Now, you could go from cinematic rights to reprint rights, even moral rights. There's so many rights associated with art, right? Which you have to be aware of. Now, this is something which you might not even think of. Like tomorrow, hey, forget about a T-shirt, right? It can even be made into digital things which are we haven't even thought of today, right? Or technological, experiences which we haven't thought of today, right? So that is a very important. Now again, another important thing is risk, right? Where you make an art and then somebody sue you for defamation, or you're defaming a certain person or community, or I'd be really surprised. It might even impact somebody's health, security, right? I mean, you do something, riots happen, or you do something, somebody's life gets endangered, right? Things like that. Also, it can be offensive. Somebody can say, "Oh, you're exploiting." Now, this is something which you might not even think, but a lawyer will come into place and says, "Hey, either think about it, or they'll come in and say, okay, this is what you need to do now," right? So these are the things. So all those questions we had asked, these are the things which you should be aware of. Okay, so again, a very high level, context here. So going to go more into the practical things which will help you and your relationships and going ahead. So the most practical thing is contracts and invoices, right? Because art is something you want to. I mean, I believe that most of you would like to create some revenue out of it. Create a livelihood. I think Jay would like to add a bit here, right?
Yeah. We can go back to the last slide. Yeah, awesome. So it's very, very important to have a solid contract. I don't mean have a contract. I mean have a solid contract. Just speaking from my personal experience, I thought that doing invoices is professional enough, and an invoice is essentially just a fancy word for a bill. Like it's you billing another person for what it is that you're doing, the pieces that you're creating, or a piece that you're creating. Whereas a contract is basically a gigantic impact-based legal document which encompasses everything from how long will you work for it, how long will you work on it, how long, how many hours of the day you're going to give this project, who is going to be a person of contact, when you're going to contact that person, how many rounds of adjustments are included, if at all, and how, like, after how many rounds of adjustment do you start charging for it, or adjustments that the client is being billed for. All of this is going to be encompassed in the contract. Also, Nitin spoke about rights. So I've done a lot of music covers and stuff like that, which if I had a loose contract, it would have made it very, very easy for labels or artists to create another thing out of it. Like use my artwork as like a tour poster, which is not designed for, which is essentially why I need to have a set of usability rights in my contract as well. So that tells them that, okay, you can use this artwork on merchandise, but you can't use this artwork to promote multi-artist tours or stuff like that. And of course, all of that depends upon the agreement or the agreeability that you have in the contract. I think, Nitin, you used a word, right, when you divided a contract into 3 parts. What was the second word? Acceptance.
Consideration.
Yeah. So the consideration part of it is super important. And I hope that you guys are taking notes and also, translating it for your own language, because the thing is that the language has to be something that you understand. Like, there's a lot of websites online which can spit out an awesome contract for you, but till the time if it's too jargony, then it starts looking threatening. So you also have to have a positioning in your contract which makes you look like somebody who is understanding of what it is. And it can't be a copy paste contract is what I'm trying to say, which is why we're not putting in a contract or an invoice format, because for everybody the formats are going to be different. So the best way to learn how to do contracts is basically, like Nitin said, have somebody of a legal background and have an accountant work with you, so that everything is sort of intentionally crafted together. Now, another, just one last thing that I'd like to add is that the terms and conditions part of the contract is super, super important, because it essentially states everything and nothing more that is acceptable in this dynamic that you're sharing with the client. So say in your dynamic, you're accepting the fact that this artwork is going to be framed and put up in a hotel lobby. Right, you work for, you'd say Radisson approached you and they're like, we want to create like an impressionist piece on, it can be digital, we'll just print it on canvas and stuff like that. Now that conversation means that you have to mention in the contract that the print, framing and handling cost will be borne by the client themselves. They can't send you an amount which is reduced of all of those costs. Ki tumne ye 2 lakhs ka banaya hai, and apna, like, all of this hanging, putting it and all of that charged was about 15,000. So we're going to send you 2 lakhs minus 15,000. That's not how it is. So that needs to be very clearly put up there. And yeah, just have an airtight contract that you understand, because the moment that somebody smarter than you is on the other side of the contract, they should be able to take advantage of the legal jargon that already is there. And I'm using jargon as a very intentional word. Till the time you don't understand your contract, it is not a good contract. So either simplify it in a way that it's understandable by you, or have it be looked at by somebody who is a legal background person. All right, back to you.
Yep. So, I'd just add to what he said, that contract, again, 3 parts, right? The most important part is money. Okay. If you do not know, not able to answer in a clear way what happens with the money part of your contract, you're going to have some problem, right? Now, you should be thinking what happens to the money, right? The contract should talk about it, right? We'll talk about more on it later. So 3 parts, right? Now, also those questions I had put earlier, You should just walk through those questions for your contract. What is art? Who is it for? Right? Who owns it? Right? All those things. Who are the rights? What are the possible things in the future? If you just answer those questions with your contract and you're able to answer them in simple language, I mean, it's a pretty good contract. But again, legal terminology, a lawyer, if you have a lawyer, if you have a good lawyer, just show it to him or her and say, listen, this is what I'm doing. Any question? Now, the good thing about lawyers is once you engage a good lawyer, they review it. Tomorrow, you can say, hey, you checked it out. Why am I in trouble? Right? So sometimes the RAC can also help. Right? Now, it can also be the lawyer who will advise you. Hey, be careful. Have you thought of this? You might not even think of that. Right? So, I mean, and many other dynamics.
Just
So invoices again are
just
very
just one thing I want to add to that. Like, just speaking from like a personal experience thing, I didn't.
Okay. So talking about the invoices, again, it hits the most important part is the money part, right? Now, because invoice is something very simple. It's usually one pager, yeah, 2 pages, right? But it helps to engage the client because you can sometimes send a pro forma invoice. Say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. Is this matching to what you want, right? Now, once that is confirmed, then you can do a contract, or you can just go straight to doing the work and then sending an invoice later, right? Invoices are contracts, right? They're just written in a very simple manner, right? If you look at it, you are actually writing what is being offered, the payment, and what is being and it is being accepted by both parties, right? Now, when we talk about acceptance, the most important thing is the two sides accept, right? Now, if you're sending an invoice or you're sending a contract and you're like, hey, I'm okay with it, but if the other person says, hey, I never agree to it, right? This is a one-sided thing. So in these type of documents, make sure there is acceptance, right? And you can always say, hey, I'm not going to do any work until you put it in writing or you sign it that you have accepted it, right? So tomorrow you're covered the three parts. One is the offer, what is being exchanged, the money part, and the acceptance. If you do these three things, it's good. Obviously, you have to do it in a good way. Yeah. Jay, you want to add something now or?
Yeah, I was basically just saying that a contract, the acknowledgement of the contract and the invoice are important, and they have to be officially acknowledged. Like a WhatsApp saying, yeah, it's fine, go ahead, does not really work. Like if the contract or invoice doesn't have the sign or the stamp, it is of literally no value whatsoever. And even like signed contracts, you can get in with some trouble. Nitin knows what I'm talking about. There was a bad experience that I had a few months back, and still kind of figuring that situation out. But it's just like a bad client is going to be a bad client, but that doesn't mean like just because you might be working with people who will take advantage of you is not a reason enough for you to not have the entire safety net set up regardless. Because I have the safety net set up, I have the accountability with which I can chase this person down and sort of, get my fair share and hold them accountable essentially, because it is in fact a legal document and an agreement that they have come on board with. So yeah, like be it like a friend or a relative or whatever, if there is any like there's not even a situation of an if, like you should always have a legal framework protecting you and spelling out exactly what it is that you're doing for them. All right, Nathan, that's all that I want to add.
Just adding to that, once you start getting into a rhythm of doing this, right, it actually helps grow your business. It actually helps do better art, right? Because you don't need to worry about it, right? So it is essentially, why, I always recommend, it might be a little hard work in the beginning. You're doing it for the first time, you're building your contracts, building your invoices. But once you have it in place, it really makes a huge difference in the quality of the work, in doing what is actually asked for, and even getting payments on time with good landmarks or good, deliverables around it, right? I mean, it actually helps you plan how to do your work, when to do it, and all those things around it. Yeah. Okay. So the next part is, okay. So what is the ideal contract and invoice? That protects you and your art. And okay, so let's ask this to everyone, Anna. What have you had any signs of a client that can give you issues, regards to payment? I mean, have you picked up these things? In case somebody give their personally.
Yeah, I mean, I had a recent client that was like quite shady from the very beginning. Like, I could tell that also because he was a much older person, so technology was not used at all. Like, emails, even WhatsApp was tough. Like, any written document and working like in multiple, like, he was in another city, I was in another city. So, physically, you cannot get anything signed. And technology is an absolutely like zero usage of technology. So nothing officially was signed, or it was all like word of mouth, phone calls, or physical meetings, very rare. So I could tell that if there's an issue with this, it's going to be a huge problem. But and in the end, like, we didn't get the payment, and it was a whole thing where he was just like, we never agreed on any of these things. So the entire project fell through. So for sure, I could see that there were issues from the very beginning. That very flaky, very not trustworthy. That's happened a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, this is quite, especially in the art field. I mean, you're very creative. You're actually, expressing, putting in a lot of, high level, thoughts and work into what you're actually doing. And the person on the other side is probably not even on your same wavelength. You probably think, on a very higher level, it's um, on a level field, and they're probably thinking on different things, right? So probably the communication is not there also, right? So, but, and also, this is where where you're prepared, or you're, anticipating these things legally. So hold on, let's have a process in place. Let's have these documents in place. No, it probably makes that relationship more clear and clear. It's a more commercial relationship, which this is where you actually determine it is a commercial relationship and nothing else, right? Because you get this. I mean, I'm talking from my client's point of views, where the construct in the beginning has probably been something else, but it has eventually come to a commercial relationship because that client has been ready and prepared to make that what it is, right? So when the actual relationship is done, it is a very smooth relationship where everybody is understanding, okay, this is what is the output. Yeah. So again, there are many signs you can pick up, right? Example, yeah, I think this will be a good thing if you can raise your hand when people want to talk, Hannah. So Jay, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, Kirti is a photographer, so I want to know something from that background as well. If you've ever had like a weird...
Bad experience.
Yeah.
I think I had two bad experiences, which I think I can share and people can learn from it because I made big mistakes. First one was, I think, mm, I was very young and I made project with like these days we call them influencers. At that point of time, I did not do anything like how Kriti said. Like, I was like, okay, maybe this can work out. Even though the good part was that she was in my vicinity, like in the same city, and we had to work together because photography is something which will happen in person. So I did that, and I was just, I think, merely 20 years old at that point of time. Um, Fortunately, I had a mood board with me, which I had shared. What had happened was she just told me, like, kind of threatened me that she would not pay me, but needs all of the pictures because I need to know that her mom is a lawyer, and if it's her pictures, then she owns it because it's her face and she got me on board and etc. So as a 20-year-old, of course, in college, I got really scared. But as a political science student also, I was trying to find like what is the way wherein I can find solutions. So while talking to a couple of my lawyer friends or lawyer in the making friends and etc., I understood that if I have any type of evidence kind of which shows that I have done something for the project, it might help. But just because of the fact that there was only one email which I had sent as a board, I could take that advantage and feel that confidence to get back to that influencer and say that, you know, I, I was the one who has clicked these pictures. I was the one who conceptualized these pictures, and you are just a face of it. So you can go on these images, or you'll have to pay me. At that point of time, I think she realized that I knew what I needed. Like, I knew that I'm vigilant enough and I know my rights, and she just can't take away my photographs like that. And she might have discussed it with her mom, of course, because she's a Delhi High Court lawyer or whatever she was threatening me about. But that was one of the things which has happened because of the behavior of people. And I think the second one being a very big brand, uh, with whom what happened was that they never signed a contract with me, wherein they said that they will be putting my pictures up in print format nationwide. I never had a contract with them for that. They did it, and I was silent the whole time because I thought I do like, who am I if this is a big brand who exists in every city, you know? So at that point of time, I thought that again, I realized that I needed to have my contracts in place and not have been that person who did not care. I believe that if I would have cared about just writing little bit things which are extra, which I know can get annoying, but if you write your date, small things like date, delivery, timeline, number of changes, how many things are there, also making sure that you are putting a big ass copyright or like your name or a preview or something like this throughout your image before it's getting confirmed is one of the things which we always forget, because people kind of tend to say that why are you writing something on the image because they can't see it, which is a little annoying, because that's not true. We can see what is the image, but at the end of the day, I think those were the few things which these are the few mistakes I've done already, and I've learned from it. And now I don't make these mistakes, but there are a few, like, I think like 2 weeks ago, I had an experience wherein just because of the fact that I had a word of mouth conversation and I I just thought that maybe this will be it. It's fine. They will give me money and etc. They cut my money down after publishing the video on YouTube, which also got like top 10 trending in YouTube. But they cut my money saying that we did not like your work
Yeah.
after publishing. So that is, I know for a fact that that is not how things work, but I did not put it down in an email. So that's my problem. So of course, I keep on doing these mistakes, and I have to realize that every single time I have to be that vigilant. It can never be, it's my chacha or it's my friend or whatever. If you just have it on your email, well and done, I believe.
This is excellent. I think again, I mean, we will go into the specifics. I mean, in the next few slides. But again, it just shows, the more you are aware of these things, aware of those questions we had asked, all those 10 questions. You will run by those questions and ask yourself, bam, 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 what are the answers, right? You will actually have a very, very rewarding experience with the people you engage. Because if you're, it just shows the seriousness of the work you're doing. And it is a very high level work, right? You want to be doing it, you want to be enjoying the work, right? So it also, once you get into this rhythm, it actually, not only just for you, but the community, for the other artists, it helps. Because, once you start doing and thinking of these things, it makes things better for everyone. Okay, so so what are the useful things that we can put on an invoice? And I've also put an authenticity certificate, because this is something which is very important. I'm seeing it by artists and art galleries and clients who actually want this as part of the contract and as part of the invoicing, right? So in an invoice, right, I mean, it's very essential to put a title that this is the invoice, right? Many people that don't even do that. You'll be shocked, right? Then you have to describe what the work has been done, right? It can be very figuratively, it can be very specific, right? But you have to actually describe what the work you have done. I'm talking right now as an artist, right? But a client also needs to know what is the work they're getting, right? What they're paying for. It has to be described, right? Now, very specific things can be the size, right? It can be, for example, if it's a canvas, okay, I've done X, inches or whatever, right? You give it the size to it, or certain measurement parameter. Again, the medium, whether it's physical, whether it's digital, whether it's a sculpture, whatever, you put it in the invoice. Now, what is the cost? Cost means how much you should be paid. Now again, this is where artists have to realize where the law comes in. Things, you have to pay taxes, right? Now I imagine, you might be doing work for 5,000 rupees. You might, I don't, what's the tax on this, right? Okay, you might be doing 5 lakhs. Like, oh my, there is so much tax, right? But it's very important, right, to take care of this, because clients and artists and other stakeholders, it's very important for both the sides. Because if one of you is not doing it, the other one can also get in trouble, right? So this, again, you can also include images of your work. You take a photograph, hey, this is the actual work has been done. You can put it on the invoice. Hey, this is the actual deliverable, right? Now, this is one thing which people forget to mention, is the payment detail. How do you want to get paid? Mention your bank account, or mention by UPI, or mention even by cash, right? You have to agree, you have to put that, because otherwise the person might not even know how to pay you, right? You send the invoice and you're like, hey, you haven't paid me. Like, we never agreed to pay you. We do it by bank transfer. I wanted to pay you by cash, right? So these are, yeah, Jesh.
Yeah, about those payment details, it's very very Like that's important, like having your account information there, your IFSC code and all of that. Because one time what happened was that I wanted payment in a different way, but the client insisted that they're going to pay me via PayPal, and PayPal takes like a huge cut. When the client sends it, the client gets a huge cut. When I receive it and I have to transfer it to my bank account, I get a huge cut. So it's like losses everywhere, and you end up getting like about at 15-20% cut. And like if it's a big project, and that's a huge chunk of money, that's just gone to PayPal. So make sure that like your payment details are well intended. Also, the image part of it works really well if you are an artist who is selling a piece that is already done by you. It is not, I don't think it's a requirement if you're going to be creating a new image altogether, right?
No.
Yeah. So, and your description and title can easily just be, your description is essentially going to be like 4 artworks being made for dash 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 for the usage of dash 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 as well.
You can even go by serial number.
Yeah.
So one, this is what it is, two. And again, remember, invoices can be a pro forma invoice.
Yeah.
You can always say, hey, this is my pro forma invoice. Tell me you accept it. Right?
Pro forma would be basically like internal use, tentative invoice types, right?
You're basically saying, hey, this is what I'm going to invoice you later.
Yeah.
Please confirm this is correct. Please confirm you want to pay by cash. Please confirm you are, this is the size you want, right? And because once you get an okay on a pro forma invoice, then you can send them the actual invoice, and then you can say, hey, hold on a minute, you agreed it, right? So this is again, now with again with cost. Remember, when I gave you those 3 things, a contract is an offer, consideration, acceptance. The biggest, most important point is money. Okay? This is where it gets very crucial. Now, I give you one example. Say you have agreed $100, right? But the person is paying you in rupees, right? Say, yeah, take this. Now, this can be an issue, right? So all these small things can come. Most important thing is money, right? In a contract, yeah, or of something of value. Because remember, Salvador Dali got paid using an elephant. It's not my money, but it's of value, right? Now, I give another example of Picasso, right? He would go to restaurants and he would have no money. He would tell the restaurant, hey, give me some food, and he would just pay something on a small canvas and give it to them, and they'd give him food, right? Again, the exchange was the food was worth some money, right? So he gave a painting. So again, you have to be careful on the consideration part. Yeah. Any more questions?
I just want to add something here. I don't know if you guys know of this artist called David Cho. So David Cho also stars in Beef, if you guys have seen Beef recently. So David Cho basically when Facebook was just becoming like a thing at that time, David Cho did a mural, and instead of asking for a cash amount, he asked for some shares in the company, which really helped him when Facebook kind of, boomed and gave him a large chunk of revenue. I'm not saying that all of his net worth comes from that share, but I'm saying like it was very beneficial for him. So you don't have to be like binary about your cost. If you're working with like an interesting enough client, you can ask for something that can grow in value. I haven't had the opportunity yet. I don't think that my work is really something that banks and finance folk would like all that much. But I'd love to own stock in a company once if I get the opportunity to. So I would accept that as a mode of payment or cost rather than a direct, transfer. Yeah.
Now you see these very dynamic transactions happening where not even you're getting stocks, you're also getting revenue share. In the future, they basically get into an understanding, okay, if my work generates you X amount of money, you give me 20% of the revenue you earn, right? So that can be also arranged. I mean, there are many different ways the consideration part can be done with. Again, like the Air India, Salvador Dali, it can be very dynamic where you are actually utilizing a different mode to actually grow your marketing, grow the use of it, grow the actual, creativity around it, right? So it is a very dynamic thing. Yeah. So we go into the authenticity certificate, and again, it's actual work. You're putting the image, the title, how it's done, when it was done, size, and then you're certifying that, hey, this is made by so and so, and you're actually signing with a date. It's like a certificate, right? So it's now very common. It's very important now because this actually relates to the intellectual property, right? You're basically saying it's original work. It's actually has some minimal amount of creativity put into it. It's original. It's got is by a certain physical form or a certain medium around it. These are all the checkpoints which create the intellectual property. Now, who owns it? That is something which the contract would do, right? So, what are the important things in a contract, right? Again, the most important thing I re-emphasize is money, is the consideration. If your contract is not simply understood around that part, I'm telling you, you're going to be calling somebody like me and say, hey, I'm in trouble. And the first thing we good lawyers do is we look at the consideration part. The first thing we look at when we open the contract, who is getting paid, what is around that, right? Is basically the invoice part inside the contract, right? All those parameters. But again, there are other things which are very important, like the artist is giving a warranty, right? You might, again, this is where the authenticity certificate helps, that it is actually original work because it hits to that point of the intellectual property. It's original. It has some minimal amount of creativity around it, right? Now, copyright is something very important, which I'll talk about in some time. Again, delivery, right? This is where, again, it touches the consideration part, payment part, right? For example, there are many people now who's like, hey, I'm not going to work with you unless you give me some advance, right? You can put that in the contract, right? So you can even say, okay, I will only get paid when the actual work is done, right? The client might say, no, you give me the work first, then I'll pay it. You might say, no, you pay me first, then I'll give you the work, right? These things, the more you are clear about that and you put it in the contract, the better it will be, right? You might even have, like we said, you might want stocks in a company, or you might want, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Chief. Advance payments, and
I had turned off my mic in the recorder. So anyway, just to repeat for the recording, I'll just say it again. I was saying that you have to stick with what the contract stipulates. Like if you don't, what can happen is that even though a client might agree, but if they're being iffy about the payment, that okay, we'll transfer it in a week or whatever, you have to remind them that the contract that you agreed to says that work will only start post the advance has been deposited to the artist or the creator. So stick to your guns. And the reason why I brought up other clients is because, say you work with like a huge client and you're kind of being loose about your own contract or how you're going to deploy it, that kind of becomes your reputation, and the more people will hear about your work, your portfolio gets passed on with the fact that this guy's a little bit, like you can get away with stuff. You can pay them less, pay them late, whatever. They're cool with it. So just make sure that you stick to what you have decided to stick to in the beginning, regardless of how big or small the opportunity is. Because nothing is as great as it seems. Actually, there's very few things that are opportunity of a lifetime, and chances are that the thing that you're calling the opportunity of a lifetime is probably not that. So
So I just what I always tell my client is, hey, I'm not here to make this relationship very discomforting. Ultimately, I will be most happy when you are making money, when you're doing good work, you'll be actually developing, growing, right? So contracts are things which can be quite dry, can be quite it might take the conversation to a different position. This is where I suggest we use performer invoices and invoices, because essentially it helps to actually clean and clear and be transparent about what the actual work is being done, right? Then you support it with a contract, because contract covers things which a couple of you have spoken about, right? For example, your use of your name, use of your doing publicity together, doing a press release together, making use of your work later, a risk of loss, right? For example, they don't they use your work and something happens around it, you get indemnified. Well, even rights, nowadays you can use it on music covers, right? You can use it on books, you can use it on in movies, you get so many things relating to that. Now the person who is actually buying the thing saying, hey, I just want to use it for a t-shirt, so okay, then I can use it for a mug, right? I can use it for I can use it on a car, or something, right? Now this is something which covers all these. Now another thing is an amendment to an agreement. Basically, you do a contract and then hey, the client might say, hey, I want you to do extra work, right? Or they might, somebody mentioned about iterations, right? You can only do 2 changes, right? What happens if there's a third change, right? What happens if the person pays you 5 days later, right? And says, oh, I don't now I want more work out of it, right? So this is where it can now again transfer and assigning of rights. For example, you might own the right, but then you want to give it to somebody else, right? Can you do that? Or they might have it, they want to give it to somebody else. You might like, hey, I'm not pretty comfortable you giving it to that person, right? Can you veto it or something, right? Now again, compliance with the law. Now here it's very important, because compliance with the law, it means many things, right? For example, we talked about tax, right? GST, TDS, all these things, it's very, you have to do it, right? Then you also have things like international contracts. Well, somebody sitting in London and you're sitting in Delhi, right? And a problem happens. What do you do? Where does this get handled? Is it in Delhi or is it in London or is it in between in Istanbul or something? Right? How does it get done? How does the lawyers come in? How does it get taken care of? All these things can be mentioned in the contract. But again, the most important thing is the consideration. It's the money. You should be able to speak it in simple English. Going legal jargon, there's no legal jargon in it at all. Simplistic, right? 95% of the consideration is not law. It's numbers. It's actual variables on your work. Yeah, the invoice, performer invoices should be your first go-to action where you say, okay, I want this. This is what, are we clear? We are on the same wavelength. Yes. Okay. Now you move to the contract. Yeah. Okay. How to charge fairly for your work, right? So I think Jay had something he wanted to add here.
Yes. So people always kind of struggled with how to charge for your work, and you guys can feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to. But it's essentially having your running costs plus your expense plus your profit, which equals to your revenue. I'm not an accounts person, so I might be using language that doesn't work. But just to simplify it, running cost is your electricity, your equipment, material, wear and tear cost, and it's also your software cost. Because I hope that as professionals you're using original software, even though I agree that it is overpriced as fuck. So yeah, but that's all the more reason for you to get your fair share for your running costs, right? Expenditure is your research, travel costs, and equipment upkeep. Now, these are not the only thing that fall under it. These are just three examples that I've listed on that. Your profit can be dependent upon brand appeal or client/project value. Now, what that means is that if it's something like a Radisson or a Hyatt or a Westin who's creating your artwork, you can charge them significantly higher than you would a friend or a rapper or an artist, a musician or independent filmmaker, because that brand's value and brand's appeal is significantly higher, and also your project stands to have more value when hundreds of drunk people are crossing it in the lobby of that hotel. So now just to break it down, say electricity, again, these are just like variable numbers, so feel free to switch them up to whatever it is. If your electric bill for a month is like 15,000 rupees, and your equipment material cost is basically like how much you've invested on your system, your PC, iPad, tablet, keyboard, mouse, table, all of that stuff, which makes your productivity significantly higher. All of that also falls under this. So having a figure and just making sure how long does this setup last you, and in a usual sense. So say like a setup lasts me for like 3 to 4 years till it starts, wavering a little bit. And if I've invested about 2 lakhs on my setting up cost, then I'd just divide that amongst 4 years, and 50,000 is my annual annual running cost for my setup. That this includes my Wacom, my PC checkups, all of that. And then your software cost is whatever it is. So essentially what you should try to be doing is getting your running costs and expenditure at least within like the month's cost of running cost and expenditure in one project itself. So say your monthly expense is about like 45,000 rupees, then all of your projects should at least be about 45 because that's just in case you don't get any other work that month, you can still make sure that your running cost and expenditure is covered. Profit is like cream on top. So if you can make a profit on it, that's awesome. But as artists who are beginning, chances are you would not be making a lot of profit. So just make sure that your goal is कि इसमें से मेरी running cost और expenses निकल जाए evenly. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So this is a very this I get asked this quite a lot, is how do I copyright the art, right? Now it's not very difficult, which people don't realize, right? So there is a copyright office in India, right? And is simply filling out an application form and just filling out the application form. So it's very important to draft that carefully. Now a lawyer can help you do it, right? But it's not that complicated. You can do it yourself also, right? Now the benefit of being copyright is that tomorrow the rights belong to you, right? Once it is registered, right?
And it's not very expensive also. I mean, people will be quite surprised at the cost of copywriting. Now, this is something which, as an artist, you are something which you are creative, you are doing something original. It actually, in the long term, helps you out, because the validity of a copyright, it's for your life plus 60 years. I mean, excuse my language, when the artist passes away, right? Now, the copyright can also be assigned to whoever. You can give it to yourself, or you can assign it to somebody else also, right? In an application. So, my message to everyone is not difficult. Do it if you want, if you can. It's not expensive. Now, what can be copyrighted, right? Uh, sorry, before that, I mean, what does the what is the benefit of copywriting, right? Now, the owner of the copyright will get the right to reproduce it, right? Somebody tomorrow, you have very strong legal grounds to say, hey, I am the owner, I get to decide, whether it can be reproduced in this way, or this manner, or this time, this location, and all that. Now, again, you also have the right to determine its work in the public. For example, you can say, hey, I want it to be displayed here. I don't want it to be displayed here. I want it in this, for the public here, but not here. In this manner. I want this, I want the people to pay to view it. I don't want the people to pay to view it. You can also have the right to adapt or make derivative works. Now, this is very important, right? So, from basically, you make from like a canvas, you can make derivative works around that, which again is, once you get a copyright, it really helps. Now, again, the rights around that. It can be for the cinema, it can be for T-shirts, it can be for mugs, everything. I mean, I'm just using very small examples, right? So this, and a copyright also allows you to enforce it if somebody is misusing it, right? You can block them from using it. You can sue them. You can claim damages from using it. So it's more important that you actually have a copyright once you create some original work. Now, what are the things that can be copyrighted? So I've given a list, like music can be copyrighted, drama can, manuscripts, digital forms, books, films, paintings, performances, fashion design, sound recording, software, if you were mechanical, like even training manuals, even websites, right? All these things can be copyrighted. And again, I keep emphasizing, it's not expensive. I mean, we're talking not a lot of money to do it. So explore this area, how to do it. It will actually help you once you enter into a more formalized flow of how to engage, how to make your work. These things will actually align. So all those questions we had asked in the beginning, if you run through those questions, you might be like, okay, this actually makes sense. Bam, 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 and you start clicking the checkpoints. Now, this is a question I get asked a lot. Hey, I'm an artist. Here I'm doing work. I'm in the course of my job, or apprenticeship. Now, who is the copyright holder, right? Now, if you are doing it in the course of your work or employment, your employment contract will most likely say the copyright or the intellectual property around it belongs to the company. Okay? So you have to be very careful around this, because many people misunderstand, hey, I'm in my job, I did this, right? It should belong to me. But then you're doing it for your company, the company's contract says this, and then this is something which you have to be just careful about. Now, the company is paying you also for that, right? In essence. So have this question, just be careful around it. Copyright, again, those questions we had asked earlier. Who owns it? Who is the author?
it can be different things, right? Now again, what are the remedies in case of a fake, forged, or counterfeit artwork? What happens? Hey, you see somebody is, um, counterfeiting your work. What do? Right? Now, this is where, like I mentioned, if you have your work copyrighted, it really helps, right? But again, if you don't have your work copyrighted, it's not the end of the road, right? Because as long as you can show it is your original work, you have done the creativity around it. It is in a tangible form, right? You're the first one to do it, right? You can sue the person for damages. And for example, if that person is selling T-shirts, right, online on or I don't want to use that online on a platform, right? Then you can block the person from selling it, right? Or they're exporting it outside. You can approach the relevant departments and say, hey, stop this. This doesn't belong to them. I don't agree this with it. So there are legal steps you can take. You can even approach the law enforcement. Say this person is cheating. There's under other sections around that, right? So it's not something which is taken lightly, right? You as an artist or clients have rights, have certain, obligations, and, have certain, actions you can take once you have something fake, forged or counterfeited, right? Now, a very important, I get this topic now a lot now, is basically AI art, right? And its ownership, right? So basically artists, we are now coming, across artists, they're using, robots, they're using, algorithms, they're using data, they're using their training machines, to generate, different type of, art around it. So, artists, creators, they're getting very, advanced. So you were seeing things like Google and arts. They have their own lab. I think it's called Culture Lab or something, right? Now you also have this DALI that has been made, right? Where and Mid Journey AI, Stable Diffusion, right? Where inexperienced artists, right? I mean, who have like no experience. They're coming and they're playing with these tools and creating something like amazing out of it, right? Now, it's so DALI is done by OpenAI, right? So they're using this language image to train. It's basically it's a bridge between text and images, right? You're putting some input and then an image is being created, right? So through machine learning, things are coming, coming out, which is very impressive, and then the question comes on ownership. Who owns this, right? Now it's an AI who has made it, right? But who actually owns it, right? So this is again, it's a pattern, right, of basically random things which are being put together in an output by an AI, right? So who owns it, right? This is the question which people ask. Now, before I answer that, I mean, as an AI, right? Who checks the AI, right? Now, for example, the AI is making something, right? And you wanted to make like some, art of a beautiful lady, but then it makes what comes out is a man, right? So who checks the AI is actually working properly, right? So this is something you can think about legally, right? again, punishment, right? Say you wanted a lady made, but a man was made, and then you published it, and then you get sued. But it's not your fault. So who gets punished in that situation, right? Is it you or is it the AI? Now, when you sue an AI, can the AI come to the court and say, hey, I'm sorry? I think they cannot, right? So again, this is now again, AI can be hacked, right? AI can can even steal things, right? So I mean, you're doing some work, you're creating, somebody hacks the AI and changes your things. Again, what happens? Or the AI steals something which doesn't belong to it and puts it in your work. This can happen. I mean, yeah. These are the things. Now again, yeah. Go ahead, Chish.
Yeah, so I think you guys would remember a few months back, Midjourney went through a complete rehaul, and there was this massive movement against AI generated art. And that was essentially because Midjourney was using image banks that were based on artists that actually not just Midjourney, many AI platforms were using art that is created by other human artists and using those for their image banks. Now, the technology is essentially something like you take an image, you ask it to create an image of a tree made out of glass. So, what it will do is that it's going to take all of the images that it has of glass, convert them to noise, so basically like destroy them as much as possible, and then do the same thing to the image of trees that it has, and then reconstruct it from the noise. So you can ask it, like, I mean, you can feed it an image and be like, do an exact copy, but AI would still not be able to do an exact copy because of that past movement that just happened a few months back. And like the thing is that with AI art, it's weird to see and understand like the artist's merit in that, but a lot of AI art and the value of it is dependent upon what you write. So I mean, I'm speaking for AI art here, just letting you guys know that I really like the usability of it, the way that it's able to, because in our office we started using it to help designers cut their work turnaround time by like a significant amount. And because of that past movement, which was anti-AI, the technology has kind of come more under control. So it's important to hold the technologies accountable, hold them accountable through a lens of legality, and so that the technology that you have is a technology that is to your advantage, not actually one that is putting you more in risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, talking even minor mistakes, you know, can malfunction, and it can be irreversible damage. So this is something which probably people don't appreciate right now on AI, right? And is taken as something very, but it can be very dangerous if not, and people probably don't understand what happens after that. Who, like I just asked, who checks it? Who gets punished for it? Or even, probably the AI is designed to do that on purpose, right? So you never know. Now again, I mean, just talking very very high level. I mean, the can a machine think? I mean, this is something. I mean, probably you guys can think about. I mean, answer that later, right? So now again, who owns? This is a very important legal point. I mean, I think every junior who comes to me, whenever we talk about it, the first thing they ask me is who owns it? Who owns the ownership, right? I mean, author we can probably debate about, but who actually owns the work when an AI is used? Now, there's a very famous case of Naruto. Is a basically a person had left their camera
in the jungle, right? Now the camera was left in the jungle, and then a monkey came, right? And he picked up the camera and he took a selfie of himself, right? So then the owner of the camera came. He picked up the camera and he went home. He's like, oh, some monkey had taken a selfie on his phone, right? And then he said, hey, this is a good selfie. Then he published that photograph, and he earned a lot of money, right? Then PETA sued him. Said, hey, hold on a minute. You didn't take the photograph, right? And it was a monkey who took it. So shouldn't the monkey have the ownership of the photograph, right? Why do you have the ownership? Now, this case talked about ownership. And this relates to AI because the case said that if there is a substantial contribution from a human, right, it is creative, then only it can be owned. If there is no human input, there will be no. So when you talk about AI art and ownership, right, that's why right now all the AI options you have human interface, have human input in it, so that you can actually get ownership because of the human, right? Now, what I would also recommend people to do is read the terms and conditions of the AI you are using, because they have, I mean, I once read through them, and they're they're very different. They're very different. So just read it before you actually start using it, right? And because technology is not, we're not even talking about days, we're talking about milliseconds. You could create something now, milliseconds, in the future, somebody can do the same thing. Probably at the same time, it can be done with the same inputs. What happens in that situation? I mean, these are dynamics which, I mean, people are probably haven't thought about, right? So that makes it more creative, the your inputs, right? So again, DAL-E. So again, I think I finish on that our talk today. We started with Salvador Dali, right? So DAL-E is actually named after Salvador Dali, right? And the robot in that movie Wall-E, right? So you can see how the traditional artists from Air India doing ashtrays is now doing AI in a very dynamic way, and all the law, it's actually part of this whole context, this whole flows in it. So what I'll do now is, I think for the next, I got 15 to 20 minutes. So people, if you have any questions, doubts, queries, go ahead. Anything, please, can be the most advanced thing, the basic thing, whatever you have experiences with, anything. So I'll open it to the floor.
I had a question about amendment to contracts. Like, how do you usually go about it? Because say we've agreed on some things at the beginning of a project, and it's towards the end that there have been overheads or changes or more people involved or things like that. How do you really account for that, and how do you tell them that, okay, we didn't estimate for this and this is the extras that we have? Like, how do you kind of put that in? Because whether it's on the client's part or my part, like if the mistake has been made or it's unforeseen, how do you deal with that?
Okay, so there are things called addendums, right?
Okay.
These are basically agreements which add on to an earlier agreement, right? So this is one approach, right? You can basically say, hey, we're creating a addition to the earlier agreement. We're referring to that agreement, and by the way, this is adding to that earlier. So these are the addendums where both the parties agree. Now, in an earlier contract, you can actually also create a process if this happens, right? For example, if you are going down a path where there are changes going to happen, you actually have steps. Okay, we sit down together, we agree what needs to be done,
If it is agreed, okay, is it the simple? Should we do addendum or should we just send an email to each other, right? You can have you can have a systematic way to do it also. Yeah, the most the most simple way to do it is get it on a piece of paper and both again offer acceptance and consideration. You say, hey, I want to make these changes. This is the cost of it, right? And we both agree. Get it on a piece of paper. Just sign, right? So again, having changes is not, especially in technology, especially in art, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you have to be flexible enough to do it, right? So, and it is very good to do it actually, because it actually, when you actually complete your work, it's a record also of, hey, listen, this is actually our journey together, right? The journey doesn't finish, right? The experience you had together will be everlasting. And if you have good contacts in place, you have good legal relationships in place, it'll actually carry on not only with that client, it'll carry on with others also. And they will also want to replicate it also with you in the future.
I think Upasna also had something to ask.
Yeah, so actually, my question was that I've never done this before. So, as a total amateur getting into something like this, what would like the uh, if there is a sample that you have of a contract, could you please share?
Okay, you can get in touch with me, and I'll email you something. But again, I wouldn't even go even down that level. I would go even keep it more simple. Just create an invoice. Create an invoice, and if you can actually answer those questions we had in the beginning, right, and capture it in the invoice, right? What is the art? Who is it for? Who is the owner? And you put it in the invoice. If you can create a good invoice for your work or for the client, you already, I think, 80% of the way. So if you're just starting in this, don't go towards the contract. Contract is slightly, I would say, after your performer invoice, even, right? Where you're actually going to the client, or the client is coming, or the client is dealing with the artist, right? And say, hey, this is this is the work I want. Because the invoice talks about the most important part of the contract, which is the payment.
The money.
Right?
Yeah.
Get your good invoices ready, get good with the date, with both people have signed acceptance, you're already on your journey. So don't, I mean, I wouldn't, I obviously I would like to sell myself, but no, I'm not here to do that, right? So I'd rather see you guys do well. So focus on the invoices. You can do that on your own. It's not too complicated. There's enough examples online how to create invoice. If you need help, I think Jay has a couple of invoices also.
Yeah.
And one more question to follow that up: is it necessary to handle like a performer invoice before giving in like a kind of
No, it's not. It's not necessary. But it always is. Why not do it? Right? It helps, right? Because you're getting the acceptance
right?
before the money, right, is paid. Now the question can be, hey, oh, my name is spelled wrong. Right? The client might just say, hey, my name is spelled wrong. And then you're like, oh man, small thing. This is what performer invoice is. And this will actually help you before you start the work. We're getting essentially good artists, people who want to do well, they want to, before they start the work, know what is being done. You don't want to be getting into a situation where you are misunderstanding the work, you're making changes later, right? Or you're doing something which wasn't even asked to do, right? For example, you might say, okay, they ask for like one piece of art, but you start making two. Like, yeah, I never asked for two. And then, I mean,
your time, your value, your creativity, it's not something which is free, right? And it's of ill value. It is of importance. So this is where I always recommend my clients performer invoice, do it, send the invoice. And um, I know it's not easy. I mean, I think we have to we have to appreciate. I mean, even I do it, right? I will get clients. I'm not going to suddenly start saying, hey, you pay me upfront, right? I'm not, my shop will get closed. My law firm will get closed, right? There's certain clients, they're very big, they're very renowned, right? I'm not going to go and say, hey, pay me everything upfront, right? I have to adjust. But I will also tell them, okay, I wanted in writing the work you want me to do, right? Because I don't want tomorrow I do something and then they say, hey, I didn't ask for that. Or I do something and they ask for it, then I can say, hey, pay me. Right? Because then you have the contract, you have the legal relationship in place. So performer invoices, I highly recommend as don't look at the contracts right now. Contracts, I suggest you start doing it once you start getting into the rhythm of payments coming into you. Once you get payments into you, then you start asking all those questions again. Because then you can ask more dynamic questions, right? Who actually owns the rights to this work? Right? This is, you might just say, I just want to sell you the actual work, but not the rights. You can separate that, or you can charge. Now, here is something very important, which I think artists can realize. You should not assign and give away your rights until full payment is made. Okay, so this is something which can be very beneficial to everyone. Is you can mention that on your invoice till full payment is made, right? You will not deliver the work, or you will not assign the copyrights or something like that. Now, what happens is sometimes you do the work and they start using the actual work in the public. Now, if you're not paid, you can stop them from using it by enforcing your rights over it. Yeah. So these are all these certain things you can utilize if you're aware of those questions which we have put in the front. These are the answers of those questions. Yeah.
I have a question, and I it kind of am like just going like piggybacking off of what Kriti had mentioned in the beginning of the session. Say that you have a client who's just like ancient, like Stone Age man, Stone Age woman. Like, what do you do then? How do you start going about the legal processes there? Like, the first thing that came to my mind was if I were in place of Kriti, I would have probably sent them a letter printed out and asked them to send it back to me. Like, I would have just posted it to them. But what are there any things that you can take in account when you're working with somebody who's like extremely technologically disabled?
Yeah, again, invoices, use them to your advantage. They are very easy. They talk about the most important thing, which is the money part, right? Now, it can be a piece of paper. You can just print it out and just give it to them and say, hey, just sign it and take two. You keep one copy, give me one copy, sign both of them, right? And then that's it, right? Now, there's always a way around it. I mean, now you can even use emails now. You can even use WhatsApp. You can even, type out the invoice in a WhatsApp, right? You just have to have it in writing, right? Don't have it in verbal. Don't do it over a handshake. I mean, even though a good lawyer will help you out with it, but again, I don't recommend you do it, right? Utilize the pro forma invoices, utilize invoices. Now, if you have large amounts, I mean, if you're talking, I'd say it depends on your internal comfort. If you're talking about a large amount, I would go more towards a contract,
Yeah.
right? But if I'm talking about smoothness, I'm talking about practicality, doing it in a efficient, effective, clear, clean, transparent manner, I just use invoices, right? And again, contacts help you cover many different dynamics, which invoices, they add to it, basically.
Yeah, Kriti.
Yeah, so like another question I had around like a similar situation. Like, so what happens if your client is like, okay, I don't want to deal with all this jhamela of signing things, paperwork, or sending things, or that I don't have the time to get into all this. Just do the work, give it to me, like we've agreed on this. So, do you drop a client like that, or do you like go on to work with them, and like what happens then?
I would simply be very creative. I would just change the title of my invoice to scope of work.
Yeah, I mean, usually that's what happens, but then there's no acknowledgement of that.
So I would highly recommend before you start, you get an acceptance, right?
Okay.
Because it's risky for you, right? I mean, I'm telling you, you're going to be doing a lot of hard work, a lot of creativity, right? And tomorrow the person might simply say, "Yeah, I never read that," right? And the headache for you to go and deal with that, it can just be covered by you spending probably a couple of hours or a couple of days getting that acceptance, right? And you can explain that to the client. Hey, listen, I'm taking this work seriously. I want to actually do what you want. How? And at a very, again, those questions, quality, right? You want to give a quality work. You don't want to just do this, just for the sake of it. But again, it all depends on the client. And you're going to get some client who because basically like, hey, I'm not going to sign anything. I'm not going to do, I'm not going to be. You're going to get those exceptions. But again, out of 100 clients, I would like those to be one, right? I don't want those to be your 99, right? So it's one that is okay. You take that risk, right? But if I'm actually giving requesting or advising you, I would say, hey, make sure you get that three things done: offer, consideration, acceptance, use the performance invoices, use a contract, answer those questions. If you do those things with all your clients and you're getting 99, I'm telling you, you will see your output of your work. You'll generate better business, you'll grow, you'll develop, you'll start planning things in a much more dynamic way.
And just to add to what your question was, Kriti, I also think that if you have a client who is not into this idea of signing the documents that you sent to them, it's only worthwhile to think about what the value that work holds to them. Like if you are going to be spending like a week or a month on it and they're not even interested in signing a contract, then it probably is not very important to them. And at that point, it kind of becomes like an internal conversation to have, that do you want to be a part of something that's this insignificant to the person that you're working for? So that is something that you should think about. I am very happy to drop clients. Like nothing gives me more joy. It's such an ego boost. But I mean, beyond that, it's also a point of comfort for me that, like, I mean, I can make enough of an income and also say no to like every faltu client that I get. So that groundwork you still have to set up for yourself, but it's always good to set up that groundwork with a system that is well engineered, rather than like keep stumbling with every project and figuring one thing or the other out. It's good to have a system in place from the get-go and then start saying no, I guess. But again, like I'm just saying that if the client is so distant from what your work is going to be, then it's probably just best to think about dropping it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? If you guys have any questions about monies, you can also ask that if you want. No? Awesome. Okay. Anything for Nitin? Lovely. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I hope that this was insightful for you, and we understand that the topic of legality and art aren't really hand in hand in their intrinsic nature, because art is very, oh, people should be loving and caring, and law is like, तूने मेरे घर की दीवार तोड़ी, मैं तेरा वो तोड़ूंगा. कोर्ट में लेकिन हाथ से पैर से नहीं, it's like that. So
That's not fair.
I'm giving a very simple example of both.
It's changing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. The impression of lawyers in India is such.
No. Okay, let me give you a better example then. Like, art is about why can't people just let people be, and it's about bigger themes, and like law is just about, it's about confronting. I mean, at the very core of a legal practice, it's about confrontation, and I would like to believe that many of us aren't confrontational. So saying no to like bad contracts or bad emails or a huge seeming project can feel like uncomfortable. Like, I mean, I have been a freelancer for almost 9 years now. Like, I've been working since I was in first year, second year of college. So I've had a lot of bad and good clients. But every time I have to send the contract, there's still like this weird knot in my stomach, regardless of like how big or small the contract is. Because that possibility of them saying, bahut zyada hai, yeah, agree nahi karo, that feels uncomfortable to address it. But it's important to remember that you're an artist in this generation, in this time, and this time is not as romantic as the books made the past centuries seem. So you have to have your own safety net, you have to have your own guidance system, you have to be somebody with a good head on your shoulders to be able to really not be taken advantage of as artists and creators, because that happens enough already. It has to change at some point. Like, people need to get their fair share for the work that they do, and law really helps with you getting that. Your personality, you don't have to like come off as an asshole to people for them to start paying you, but you also don't have to come off as somebody who they can completely walk over. So, like, as you're building your own safety net in terms of legality, also build a persona of you as a professional artist. That's important. Your professional work and all is great. Keep doing that. It's going to keep improving with every year. But the first step that you take, actually not the first step bullshit is like, it's so much, I don't want to give so much importance to the first step, but the first few steps that you'll be taking in this industry can set up the path that you'll be on. So make sure that those first few steps are with a lot of confidence and intent. And yeah, it's at the end of the day, it is art. You might not be making a lot of money, but there's a lot of creative expression. But you can also make a lot of money and also have a lot of creative expression. So it can go either which way. So yeah, thanks for attending. This was great. Nitin, do you want to add anything before we say goodbye?
I think now, especially in India, I'm seeing, like, with the startups, with the younger generation coming up, the advanced level of thought process is very, thought provoking. It's very, high level. So especially the use of the law, right? It's very, how should I say, very far sighted, right? People are thinking about trademarks, copyrights very early on now, which is very, very impressive. So please don't feel that, this is something, it's very, complicated or, difficult to do. Where we are, I think, in the world ecosystem, we actually have the weapons now in India. When you're talking about UPI, you're talking about GST, you're talking about copyright, everything is available very fast, very quick. And it is done in a very advanced way. If you have good advisors, even if you don't have good advisors, we have the right, approach. Like Jay said, you can do very well in this industry. And it is very dynamic. It has a lot of scope. Creativity, especially, is something. I mean, we had touched on AI again. It's something which is not very. I don't. I For
For example, can your job be replaced? Can a creative artist be replaced? I don't think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And the recording of this will be uploaded to the YouTube, I think, by maybe end of today, hopefully. And thanks a lot. This has been fun. See you guys